Life in the big cities of China is incredibly convenient. Public transport will link you to any part of the city with many different convenient ways to pay. This video, however, has very little to do with public transport. But why bring up public transport at all, really? Well, it has to do with the fact that in China it is so convenient to get everywhere. The high-speed rail network, especially, that has now been set up across the country, allows you to effortlessly travel between urban centers, the rural countryside, from city to city, province to province, all over China. But just because you can go somewhere doesn't mean that you're welcome there. You see, this convenience of travel has now laid bare one of China's biggest problems, and that is the disparity between the haves and the have-nots. You see, you would think that being able to transport yourself to a big city from the rural countryside would be a surefire way to gain opportunities. You go into a place like Shenzhen, big city that's growing exponentially year after year, it's got migrant workers everywhere. You would expect that you could go there, find a job, find opportunities, start a new life for yourself, like many people seemingly do. But walking around the city streets, you often see the have-nots sitting there, trying to eke out a living by doing menial tasks on the side of the road, doing things like collecting garbage in order to try and sell them for a pittance just to survive. And you wonder, why is it that there are so many of these people that just don't seem to be able to grab a hold of all the opportunity that surrounds them? Well, it may surprise you to find out, but it's no fault of their own. China has a built-in caste system, and it's called the hukou system. It is a registration system that separates the rural agricultural people from the urban city people, and it's something that affects your life greatly. Being born in the rural countryside of China is a massive handicap when it comes to working in the cities. Of course, it's more complicated than that, and this whole hukou system actually can be traced back very, very far, back into Chinese history. But it was only during Mao Zedong and his terrible years of reign that it was really implemented into what it is today. And the whole idea was to control the flow of population and also keep people from rebelling, because city centers are always a place where people get together, where people can organize, and it's always seen as the most dangerous place for authoritarian and dictatorial regimes, like the one currently in China. You wouldn't want the masses getting together and rising up against you. So, in order to combat this, people who had urban residents would get a lot of benefits from the government, and this would be in order to placate them, in order to make them dependent on the government and less likely to stand up against the government. The rural countryside, though, you were born there, you're more or less left to fend for yourself. Now, there are some benefits to having a rural hukou, and it has to do with land and having the right to be able to work on your land to produce produce crops and things like that, which their urban counterparts do not have. And to be fair, the Chinese government has been trying to reform the hukou system for decades, but it's very slow and not very effective. And people born in the rural parts of China still suffer great disadvantages in the cities. I mean, things as basic as not being able to rent a place in certain areas, not being able to send your children to the schools there because of the hukou system, being passed over for employment and actually paid less than your urban hukou holding counterpart. There are all sorts of injustices going on, and it's something that's quite alien to people who have not lived in China. You see, in most of the Western world, once you get residence in wherever you stay, if you are renting or staying in a city or a specific area, you have all the rights as anyone else who was born in that specific area. I'm not talking about nationalities here, I'm talking within countries, of course. And it would seem rather bizarre to us that, say for instance, somebody who moved to California from Arizona would not be able to get a job because they were born in a different state, or perhaps would not be able to open a bank account because they were born in a different state, that kind of thing. But of course, there are many intricacies to the hukou system, and it's very complicated and not as simple as it seems. I just want you all to be aware of this phenomenon, the hukou system, because most people visiting China don't actually understand it, especially from a Western point of view. You look around the streets and you see people, and you just expect that everybody has equal opportunities within China. But unfortunately, that's not the case. It's one of the most unequal places in the world, where there's such a huge wealth gap between the poor and the rich, and those with power and those without. If you've learned anything from my videos, I think you would have learned that what you see on the surface of China is not really what's going on. China is very good at playing this face game, especially the government outputting all these images of how great China is and everything's hunky-dory and 100%. But meanwhile, China faces challenges just like anywhere else, and in fact faces a hell of a lot more challenges than most places. I hope you've learned something, guys. Go up, ask people about the hukou system. Look up the hukou system because it's something that's not discussed enough. Anyway, until next time, I can't wait to see you in the next video. I want to give a massive thank you to each and every one of you who watch my videos, share them out, and the very generous people who have supported me on other platforms too. You guys are incredible, and you've given me so much more drive to continue to do what I do. I can't wait to bring you something really interesting next week. And until then, you know the drill. As always, stay awesome.